Gearing up for Ohio State football 2022 and big expectations, of course, for the Buckeyes every season, but this seems to be at a fever pitch. We'll enjoy the football in week 0 and a couple Big Ten opponents, of course, on the field this week. We've got the usual bunch here. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports there in the middle. Kevin Noon, Buckeye Huddle. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle as well. Please join them on their platform right there. Appreciate you guys being here as always. They've made it happen 173 consecutive weeks. Good Lord.
We're consistent, if not nothing else, consistent
Absolutely.
in our presence.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
There it is.
I'm just here to find Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. All right. I'm just here to listen and learn and be entertained. So you guys have to do all that. All right, Steve, we will start with you. I'm going to throw out what I mentioned to you and Kevin before we started to record here, even though we're going to go with kind of big picture, evaluate both sides of the ball. Special teams will go the full route today. And, of course, answer everyone's comments and questions. Bring those to the chat. I am not hearing, and when I say reasonable prediction, I mean that Ohio State could come out full bore and win this game over Notre Dame. I don't know, pick your score, 3-touchdown win. It would not shock me at all. They're that talented, and if the defense plays reasonably well, yes. And Notre Dame has a history, albeit under Brian Kelly, of blowing big games, big opponents, and even before Brian Kelly. However, it seems to me like Ohio State fans, and this is across the board, I can't find any Ohio State fans that really believe this is going to be a good game. Steve, I'm seeing like 52-20 all over the place. Those kind of scores.
Mark, that's the kind of proper perspective that Ohio State fans have always prided themselves in, that they have a complete understanding of the opponent and an undying respect for every team that comes into Ohio Stadium. Well, I mean, let's just add it up. I mean, Ohio State put up huge numbers in the Rose Bowl. The quarterback and that wide receiver are back. The running back is back. The defense should be much improved. Sounds like it is, based on everything everybody connected with Ohio State is saying at this point. And here's Notre Dame with a new quarterback. Their top returning wide receiver, not necessarily receiver, because Mayer, the tight end, had more catches. He had like 60 catches, but Avery Lewis, I think, was the receiver who's out. He's not going to play because of injury. And I mean, and a brand new head coach who did coach the one game in the Fiesta Bowl, but first year head coach. Sellout game at night. It's Ohio State versus Notre Dame. And we've seen this movie played out once before. Ohio State beat them 45-26 in basically the same scenario 28 years ago or 27 years ago, I guess. So I don't know. I think 3 touchdowns is kind of the going rate right now. And that if anybody's got a reason why it should be any closer, I'm all ears, but I don't understand. What am I missing? I did pop in the Oklahoma State Notre Dame bowl game, and I will tell you I was very impressed with Mayer, the tight end, and very impressed with Lorenzo Styles Jr. From Pick Central. He caught his first career touchdown, I think, in that game, at least first receiving catch. He may have had a punt return or kick return touchdown last year, but very impressed with those two in particular on offense. But is the quarterback who's making his first career start going to get him the football? I don't know that. The guy threw like 35 passes last year. So, it's at least more than CJ Stroud had thrown a year ago at this time. But, on the road, I don't know. Now, Notre Dame's won its last 8 or 9 road games back to a blowout loss at Michigan mid-2019, I think. So they've done pretty well on the road in recent years, but I don't know. Does anybody have a reason why this should be closer than 3 touchdowns? I'll shut up and listen.
I was going to say the odds makers have it at 15.5. So, I mean, 21 and 15.5, there's a big difference there, but when you're trying to sit there and get money split on both sides of the line, and I mean, obviously there's a belief that Ohio State is at least 2 touchdowns better plus a little. So is it that big of a stretch to get to 3 touchdowns? Ohio State's coming in off of what was, I guess considered a disappointing season, 11-2, no appearance in the Big Ten championship game, but a Rose Bowl championship, but certainly showed some vulnerabilities against Michigan, showed some vulnerabilities against Utah before finally pulling that game out 48-45. You bring in a whole bunch of new coaches to sit there and address the issues. And, the last time that they did kind of a huge change on the defensive side and went from Greg Schiano to Jeff Hafley, things worked out. So, where is my score going to be at? I mean, my score changes frequently. I don't go out and write my score 3 weeks prior to the game, 2 weeks prior to the game and say, well, that's what I'm going to ride with at that point. But, I guess right now, I mean, if you asked me, I'm probably around 20 points at this point, and I don't feel terrible about it. I don't think that it's an overcorrection or some sort of preseason false bravado. That's I just think based on where the teams are right now and just kind of some recent history, that's what I got.
I miss the days of Ohio State fans, like 20 years ago. I remember the season opener against Texas Tech. Throughout the course of the summer, Texas Tech kept getting better and better without having played a game, kept getting tougher and tougher. Cliff Kingsbury was the second coming of this, and receivers and everything. And next year, I think the same thing happened with Washington. These season openers, 2006, you got to watch out for Northern Illinois. They've got Garrett Wolf, and you would just build these guys up. And then Urban Meyer comes along, and I think maybe eliminated some of that where you kind of you feel better about your team and your offense. But, I realize these aren't season openers. Virginia Tech in 2014 at home. We weren't doing a show then, but we probably could have been saying the same thing. I'm sure we said some of the same things about Oregon, the Oregon game last year. It wasn't a season opener, but I don't know how many people were picking Oregon in that one. So, 3 touchdowns. I think I'm not going to be shocked. I'm probably going to go. I have not even made a pick in terms of the line yet. Like, I don't even know who I'm taking in that one way or the other. I think one thing that should concern Ohio State fans is just the ability for Tyler Buckner to extend plays, make plays when you've got a defense that is moving all over the place, a brand new defense moving all over the place. They're saying all the right things about their communication, but if he's extending plays and somebody makes a break, I mean, that could lead to some big plays. And it only takes 2 big plays for a 14-point game to be a tie game. So I think that's an area of concern that I have for that game.
On BTN, they've been replaying the 95 game, and Notre Dame was winning, and then suddenly Notre Dame said, nope, we're done, and kept turning the ball over, and that game changed in a hurry. So I agree with Tony in regards to it just takes a couple of big plays. I do agree in terms of the mobility of Buckner. Michael Mayer is just going to be an issue. I mean, I can go back through a lot of Wisconsin tight ends and Iowa tight ends that Ohio State's had a hard time keeping tabs on, but that was also a different era in terms of maybe some of the Wisconsin tight ends where Ohio State's offense wasn't nearly as explosive. But, spoiler alert, I am going to pick Ohio State unless something, the bottom falls out of something or whatever. But I guess this is going to be a matter of by how many.
In the lifetime of everybody who is watching this show right now, I mean, I guess there's a possibility that somebody was alive in 1935, which would make them 87 years old, I guess, or whatever that would be, when they played the first 2 times. Ohio State has beaten Notre Dame 4 times, and all 4 of them have been by double digits. I mean, 19 points in 1995, and then a game that you'll never see replayed anywhere, the 29-16 game the following year. And why won't you see it replayed anywhere is because Notre Dame and NBC own the rights to that, and that's not one they want shown to anybody, obviously. But Ohio State did go to South Bend, Indiana, and beat them 29-16. Demetrius Stanley returned the opening kickoff 85 yards, and Ohio State had a 7-0 lead before people had even sat down in their chairs. And then you have the two bowl games that the Buckeyes played against Notre Dame. They were 10 years apart. The 2007 Fiesta Bowl, I think, was the first one. I'm just looking for that one. That was the game. I told this story. I had to relieve myself, so I went into, or no, the second one was the 2015 season, the 2016 Fiesta Bowl. This is the story with that one. I was down the field taking pictures, but needed to go into the tunnel for a second to use the boys' room. And in a span of about 5 minutes, here came Joey Bosa, who had been ejected. And then here came Smith, the linebacker from Notre Dame, was drafted to the Cowboys.
Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Jalen Smith, and he had injured his knee, blew out his knee or something, or his ankle, whatever it was, and he was done. So in 5 minutes, I was on ESPN twice in the tunnel in the background as they took Joey Bosa out, and then here comes Smith. But the Buckeyes won that one 44-28, so that was a 16-point win. And then the 10 year prior to that, the 2006 Fiesta Bowl, 2005 season, Troy Smith threw for 1,000,000 yards, and they beat Notre Dame and Charlie Weiss 34-20. And Marcus Freeman was actually in that game, I guess, as what would he have been, a true freshman, would have played in that game. And 34-20, Ohio State won. That was the one where Charlie Weiss, was sitting there with twirling his Super Bowl rings and talking about the difference between him and Jim Tressel and his team having a decided schematic advantage and all this other horse shit. And, boy, he got it for the first of many times shoved up his front butt, with the way that one played out.
Well, Steve, what I got out of all that is I'm disappointed as a veteran media member that you didn't kind of take, your inventory, because, this wasn't a third overtime or something that you had to go run out on. This is like the first 5 minutes of the game.
First half, yeah. Well, these things happen.
Okay.
That was the I don't know if that was the Fiesta Bowl where I'm on the bus trying to get to the stadium for a 11 a.m. local start there in Phoenix, and it's like 10 a.m. and we're still on the bus. We can see the stadium, but we can't get to it because it's total gridlock. And I finally told the bus driver to just open the door, and we walked the last 3/4 of a mile to the stadium because they didn't know how to conduct traffic. Of course, Kevin and Tony were on the first bus leaving at 7 a.m. from the media hotel. They were in their seats by 7:30, I'm sure. But me, I'm the last one out of bed, the last one out of the hotel, last one on the bus, and last one to the stadium. So that's just the way that one worked out.
All right, folks, we've got Buckeye Talk with you every Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern time. So get here next week and bring a friend, because it'll be our big Notre Dame preview, but not too early to talk about the Irish. This should be a colossal matchup. And to put this into view as well, we will have predictions from these three. Of course, they can direct you toward their sites and whatever their schedule is for releasing predictions. But if you want them all together, plus mine, then you join us on Patreon and you get the 12-pack of prediction from these three, plus myself, plus a lot of other media folks. And we won't mention who came out on top last year, both straight up and against the spread. I got one more week to brag about that. All right. Mr. Steve Dace thought he had me most of the season, but we had a nice big comeback the last few weeks. All right, Steve, you wanted it. Let's talk position groups, big picture. We're going to start with whatever position you want. What is the most important position on this football team to make the difference between just simply, run-of-the-mill 12-1 Big Ten champion versus actually having a big season and doing something that matters? Like, winning a national championship?
I think it's the offensive line. I interviewed a high school kid the other day. I covered a high school game, and he said our coach always talks about how the heartbeat of every team is the offensive line. And it's so true. If you're able to move the football, and not even score a touchdown every time, but able to move the football and change field position, man, does that really change the tenor of the football game. And you lean on the opposing defense, and in the fourth quarter, you're getting those tough yards that maybe you weren't able to get in the first quarter. So it's a lot that goes into it. But I think the offensive line, it's twofold here. It's improved run blocking. Improved run blocking is something that this team's got to have. Better lanes for Travion Henderson. At times, the fits just weren't right, and he was getting hit at or near the line of scrimmage. And he's not a guy, at least last year, that was capable of churning through contact, maybe like a Beanie Wells or some kind of big Duraback like that. But so to me, run blocking is integral, and I think they're going to be fine there this year. But I think the other one is pass protection. They kept CJ Stroud perfect with a clean pocket for the most part last year, and really that's going to be a big question because Paris Johnson's moving from left guard out or from guard out to tackle. And DeJuan Jones is at tackle. He didn't play particularly well against Michigan. You have two new guards with Matt Jones and Donovan Jackson, and then Whippler is back at center. So really, to me, that group's got to play great football for this team to live up to all of the hype. And are they a national championship caliber offensive line? We really don't know that as of today. It's possible, I suppose. It's hard to really get a read on this team. People are like, what's the depth chart look like and these kind of things. And they really don't, we don't get to watch a whole lot of practice. I mean, very little. And you can't really glean a whole lot from what they tell us. I mean, they have really done a great job of keeping the lid on most of the developments over there in terms of scheme and how they're going to attack people on both sides of the ball. And it's all going to be a wonderful surprise that is unwrapped a week from Saturday. So, but backups on the offensive line, if we were looking at it across there, it seems like Enoch Vamahi would be a guard. Maybe Ben Christman would be a guard. Jacob James would maybe the backup center. And then the backup tackles look like Zen Machowski and Josh Fryer. That looks to me like the pretty solid backup five. I don't know, Tony, if you have any other thoughts, but to me, I think going into the season, I'd rate this unit as a B+ type unit, and a chance to earn an A depending on how they attack their business, I guess, going into the season.
Yeah, I think that's the depth chart. Nick, that backup right guard can be any number of guys. Ben Christman, I think we saw him in there last with the twos. I think the defensive line is another good guess or pick, but I'll leave that for Kevin, and I'll just say the secondary, because this is a group of, and while everything is one up front, I'll leave the free spaces for everybody else. I will do the actual analysis, the analytical part of the show for all of these people. But no, I think the safeties, the cornerbacks, so much is riding on those guys. One, staying healthy. Two, doing the job that Jim Knowles has for them to do. This is a group of corners. Denzel Burke is one of the best in the country. Cam Brown has been around forever, has yet to really be fully healthy all of the time. And can he do that? Jordan Hancock, the number 3 corner, has been injured. J.K. Johnson, the number 4 corner, redshirt freshman, missed all of last season. The only guys that haven't been injured in the cornerback room is just Jair Brown, the true freshman. The other true freshman, Ryan Turner, is dealing with injuries through camp. And then you look at the safeties, and every single guy in the 2 deep of the strong safety and the free safety have missed portions or entire seasons with injuries. So there's all kinds of injury concerns at positions that if they can't handle it, then things are going to get bad or can get bad. And you look at examples in the past where in 2020 they ran out of defensive backs, and that's why you saw them playing 4 linebackers, because they didn't have anybody else they trusted, and Alabama took advantage of it. They have more numbers now, but these guys have to stay healthy. And you're asking Ronnie Hickman to play a position that he didn't play last year. You're asking Josh Proctor to play a position that he didn't play last year. And Court Williams, they're still trying to find a spot for him, and it might be a part-time thing. Lathan Ransom coming off of a terrible leg injury, but he's full go now and playing a number of different positions all over with the safeties. So I think everything can work out really, really well, but none of it has yet. And these guys have been working to experience success for a long time, and it's not happened for most of them yet. So I think there's concerns there, but I'll pick the secondary, knowing that the answer is up front.
Yeah, I guess that leaves me with the defensive line, since Tony set it up on a tee. They certainly have the guys that certainly have the names and the star rankings, but we haven't certainly seen the results yet. The last year they came up short a lot of times. They were a half second late, whether or not it was a matter of opposing quarterbacks were sped up enough to know to get away, but it just didn't really feel that there was enough havoc being caused by the defensive line. And you lose some guys. They certainly have the names now. You lose Tyler Friday for the whole season. He's back. Yeah, JT Tuimoloau came in. He committed on July 4th. He came in shortly after that. Didn't have an opportunity really to have much run up, and he's out there playing. Played more than Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer's heavier. Remember, Jack Sawyer didn't have a final season in Pickerington because he was getting ready to make the jump for college, and there was the crazy belief that maybe it would be spring football versus fall football when all the things were going on. What do you have in terms of your interior line? I think that one of the big things for me is the fact that under the Jim Knowles system, the defensive linemen are not going to have as many responsibilities for some other things, and they can kind of pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And I think that's going to be very important. But until we see who the guys are going to be, you can sit there and Larry can say, oh, I got 10, 12 guys I can play. Does that mean that everybody's going to get 30 snaps? Is that what it's going to be? Or are we going to get into a point where Jim Knowles is like, well, these are the 6 guys that are really getting it done for us the most. Let's not get to the point of where we're just trying to make sure everybody's cool with 32. Let's get these guys, the guys that are productive out there, because you could have plenty of gas in the tank in the quarter, but a lot of Ohio State games don't go into the fourth quarter. So, get out there, be productive, and get things done when you can, and, figure the rest out later.
Yakov 22 is high on one Matthew Jones, second to third round in the 2023 NFL draft. He's been productive. Of course, he came into college football as a top-rated player.
That might be a little high. Just based on Wyatt Davis is what, a third rounder. Josh Myers, was he a second or third rounder? Matt Jones, I'll be interested to see what he does athletically to move him up the draft boards. But I won't be surprised by an all Big Ten type of season. I just think, I don't know if he's the athlete that they want there, but I could definitely see him wherever he's drafted end up being a starting NFL lineman. They pick guys in the 5th round and you're still starting. Andrew Norwell was undrafted and becomes all pro. So I think second, third round, I think is I would take the under by saying he'll go later. So I don't know if that's the over, actually.
I like Matthew Jones. I think he's a very good player, and he's got the opportunity to play his way into whatever he wants to be, I think. And as a third-year player, he would have the right to leave after this upcoming season as well if he wants to. So that would be the worst-case scenario if DeJuan Jones, and most certainly Paris Johnson's going to leave after this upcoming season. The 3 of them would be gone. and you'd be left with Whippler probably at center and Donovan Jackson at guard, and kind of trying to rebuild there without a lot of great blue chip type guys to kind of fill in behind them. I've maintained, how many times on this show that they're going to have to hit the transfer portal pretty hard for offensive linemen and maybe for a defensive lineman or two as well.
Ed Rogers is asking why Lathan Ransom is not starting.
Well, I responded to him in the chat just saying that, he didn't have a spring ball. So This is his first real experience with the Jim Knowles defense, but he spent the entire, we talked to him yesterday, and he spent his entire rehab studying and being ready for the defense. And so now he knows it, but they really, really like Ronnie Hickman. So they're not going to start anybody over Ronnie Hickman. They really, really like Josh Proctor. So they're not really going to start anybody over him right now. I think they just like the ability to put Lathan Ransom wherever they need him. And they can also come up with some stuff for him to do. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing quite a bit against Notre Dame, because he's more of a cover guy than Court Williams, if they want to use him as that nickel guy against a Notre Dame tight end like Michael Mayer instead of Tanner McAllister, who is smaller. But I think they have an idea of ways to use him, but it's just the two guys that are starting are entrenched at this point. And remember, Josh Proctor, this is his 5th year, and Ronnie Hickman, this is his 4th year. So those are two veterans, while Lathan Ransom is still just a junior at this point.
Yeah, I think you hit all the things I was going to say. Is he was set back a little bit by not being there in the spring, and they've got 3 pretty good guys penciled in as the starters right now that they want to go with. So I think Ransom's going to play. I think Court Williams is going to play. Potential that Kai Stokes will play as well. Cameron Martinez is in that mix as well, although he's kind of a utility guy that could play. It sounds like any of the 5 secondary positions. When you talk about the 2 cornerback positions and the 3 safety positions, he could move around. And to listen to Perry Eliano talk about it, don't get married to the idea that somebody is the bandit, somebody is the adjuster, and somebody is the whatever the name of the other one is, the nickel, because they're interchangeable. And in one series, you could have somebody, Hickman at the bandit. In the next series, he could be the adjuster. So depending on how they need to rotate to get guys rest and whatever. So, don't get too wrapped up in the names. Just, my big thing is to look at the overall product, and is it going to be much improved? Yes. I don't think we have any doubt about that. I think that's what everybody who's been at practice and the players, the coaches, any observers are saying. The defense is going to be much better. And how much better? That's the question we're left with. But, Lathan Ransom is an important part of this, just as Cameron Martinez and Court Williams are, even if they're not out there for the exact very first play of the game. So, take it for what it's worth, I guess.
Sarge is asking about Chip Tranum's role and if he will get any reps at running back, or is he getting those?
Yeah, they announced that he did, he got a little bit of a look. He's kind of an emergency guy, obviously, because of the injury to Evan Pryor. You have a 1-2 punch of Trevion Henderson and Mayan Williams. Dallin Hayden is your number 3. And, they were very complimentary of Dallin Hayden and the work he put in, especially upon the injury to Evan Pryor. But, Chip Trayanum is probably your number 3 linebacker. So you're not going to want to pull him too much away from that. But I think that there certainly could be an instance where if need be, that Chip Trayanum could do something there. I mean, obviously that was the position that he played at Arizona State, so it's something that's familiar to him. But yeah, I think if I'm setting some sort of over-under on how many snaps I expect to see Chip Trayanum play at running back, you would have to come in with a really low number for me to come in and say, okay, well, I'll go over, because I don't really see that being the case. I mean, it's going to be pretty similar to the number of snaps at running back that I expect to see out of, say, Steel Chambers.
Yeah, I'd set it at 0.5 and take the under. They put him there for part of the day just to make sure he still knew how to ride a bike, and That's all that was, in my opinion. And then pretty much Ryan Day confirmed that. So, yeah.
Brady's asking here more of a coaching versus underperforming question about the defensive line. Were they not as good because then they needed to be because that the offensive line was never confused?
I mean, if you're good enough, confusion, I mean, they never had to confuse anybody with, what they were doing with Chase Young, Now he's elite, but there is some predictability to what Larry Johnson wants his defensive line to do, but it's been successful over the years. I just, I don't, I just don't know that they were as good as everybody thinks, or, they were close at times, but is that a product of what you're talking about there about the offense not really being all that concerned or confused, but they also throw the ball quickly against Ohio State's defensive line to avoid those sacks. So, I expect the defense as a whole to be better this year. They're going to be doing some things differently on the defensive line. So I don't know how active those guys are necessarily going to be pass rushing, although Jim Knowles is kind of poo-pooing the thought that he's just going to have them pinching and being totally focused on stopping the run. So, I'm interested to see what the young guys do, how much that fuels the old guys. And if at some point Larry Johnson just hands it over to the second-year guys, and by handing it over, they're not going to be playing 50 snaps, but if, they end up playing 35 to the vets, 25 or something like that.
All right, folks, every Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern, we got Steve Hellwagon on the line, Bucknuts 247 Sports, and of course from Buckeye Huddle, Kevin Noon and Tony Gerdeman. Kevin, why don't we find out from you where people can find you, podcast and otherwise?
Yeah, exactly. You can find me, first of all, on Twitter at Kevin_Noon. You can find me at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Give us a look over there. I'm the host of the Big Noon Podcast, which is on the Buckeye Huddle YouTube channel. I also have the Best Noon Sports Show, period. It is in hiatus at this moment as I am focusing on the Big Noon Podcast as we get Buckeye Huddle off the ground. But check us out at all locations that you get your podcasting channels, including YouTube, Apple, iTunes, all of that good stuff. And once again, BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Tony.
As Kevin said, BuckeyeHuddle.com. Check us out there. You can find me on Twitter at Tony Gerdeman. The podcast is the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. And right now, just working on a series of 100 things for Buckeye fans to look forward to, 10 a day, talking about just all kinds of crazy stuff there. And then finishing up some positional previews as camp has ended. And really, we're just a couple of days away from game week and all of that entails. So looking forward to all kinds of stuff there at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
What is going on with Steve Hellwagon?
Oh, as usual, I'm stuck in the past. I've done a look back at the 2002 team from 20 years ago. They won the national championship. And I did a 2-part interview with Jim Tressel. I was able to talk to him on the telephone for about 30 minutes recently and talked about how that team was assembled and then the long and winding road through that season, and then how things changed in all of their lives the moment that game against Miami ended up, and what the last 20 years have been like for him, and really the last 10 years since he went into higher education. He is actually going to be retiring from Youngstown State as the president there as of February of 2023. He'll be back at Ohio Stadium next Saturday for the 20-year anniversary celebration. They're going to be recognized at the game, that 2002 team. And in my second interview with him, I put it out there very plainly that they should put a sign on the facade of Ohio Stadium that says Jim Tressel 8-1 against Michigan. I know maybe with the star by it because of the NCAA sanctions, you can't say 9-1, 6 Big Ten championships and 2002 national championship. If Paul Brown and Woody Hayes have a sign, this guy deserves one, and probably that other guy deserves one too. The guy who slinked back to Fox with his tail between his legs this past week, and we can talk about that at some point as well. But the other thing's dotting the I. I think Tressel ought to have a chance to dot the I, but maybe next year when they play Youngstown State would be the fitting day to do that, kind of a celebration of both schools if he's selected and honored to do that at that point. But that was kind of a neat thing I was able to do. And of course, today marks the exact 20-year anniversary of the very first game, August 24th, 2002, the Pigskin Classic, the earliest ever season opener for Ohio State. They beat Cliff Kingsbury, was the quarterback, and some guy named Mike Leach was a young Pirate at that time at Texas Tech as the head coach. And Ohio State rolled in that game. Maurice Clarett had a big day in his college debut, 175 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they let him carry the trophy for winning the game off the field afterwards. Here, rookie, you get to carry this. So he won it for him, so why not let him carry it off the field? But at any rate, all that up at bucknuts.com and Twitter, 24/7 Sports, and Twitter at Steve Hellwagon. And so much game stuff coming up here in the next 10 days as we lead up to the biggest season opener that I can ever remember. They played Miami in the Kickoff Classic one time. And last year on the road at Minnesota for a Big Ten game was a little bit different, but I don't know when they've had a season opener that really measured up to this in terms of hype.
Absolutely. I saw your post on Twitter, and wow, my first thought was, yeah, they did play that game this early in the season.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the earliest college football openers by anybody ever. Yeah. And Clarett ran wild, 175, 3 touchdowns, 45-17. Is that the final score?
Something like that.
That comes to mind.
45-21.
45-21.
Thank you. Yeah,
that was
Kingsbury threw 2 touchdown passes to some piker named Wes Welker that day. So yeah, it was some star power there that we didn't even know about at the time.
And that was also Maurice Clarett probably should have scored 6 touchdowns that day, but I think Jim Tressel wanted to rein him in, gave a couple of those touchdowns to Lydell Ross when Clarett would get them down the field, and then he'd pull them out because he could have he already exploded. Like, he was amazing in that game, and a new world was created. And Jim Tressel, I think, knew rightly, like, we gotta slow this thing down. And then the next week against Akron, he rushes for 7 carries for 52 yards or something like that. While everybody Kent State, waiting for him to, what's he gonna do now? And Jim Tressel's like, we're gonna slow things down here until we need him against Washington State.
Yep.
Absolutely. Wow. We all feel old now.
Yes. You're welcome.
And carried the trophy off the field. Yeah, I do remember that scene as well. And of course, it was a more important trophy a few months later. And just to think, when people size up bye weeks now, when we talk schedules and they talk about, okay, this team has to play 5 consecutive weeks or whatever, man, that team, they just went through the gauntlet, didn't take a week off, 13 straight. Crazy. All right. Appreciate everybody being here for Buckeyes Live. We do it every week at 1:30 Eastern Time. We had a question about Evan Pryor's comeback and what type of player he's going to be. He was, I don't want to say downgraded. It might be a bit of a slight on Master Teague, but we know Master Teague's limitations as a back. I don't know that we can need to write off Evan Pryor's career to that extent, do we?
No, I mean, we see guys come back from ACLs and do just fine and not really give up a step. We certainly saw, Master Teague, who, I believe that was an Achilles, though. And, I always heard about these great track speeds coming out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And, maybe straight line, he had it. But, coming through the line, that was not, it just didn't necessarily work for him. But, I think with Evan Pryor, obviously it's a huge blow for him to lose this season. But when you're trying to find, the silver lining, it gives him some separation, certainly from Mayan Williams, who you figure is at the end of into his Ohio State career. And Trevion Henderson will be going into his 3rd year next year it gives them a little bit of separation. So maybe that'll be the thing that helps keep Pryor in place. If he came in, was truly the third back at this point, I mean, certainly he could be the number 2 back. Would he view things the same way? So I'm expecting big things from Evan Pryor, but you just never know. I mean, obviously ACLs can be a little tricky.
The other thing with Evan Pryor that people need to also remember is the next time he'll carry the ball at Ohio State, he will be junior eligibility. The last time he was a regular running back was a junior in high school. That's like he missed his senior season because of COVID. Then he redshirted last year, played 4 games, carried the ball 21 times, misses this year. So there's going to be a number of years between a workload and being whatever he is next year. And it's a long time for a guy, but he's put up no miles since then. So I think that helps, but yeah, I expect him to get back to form. And as Kevin said, this actually maybe benefits Ohio State in terms of having Evan Pryor next year, because while they still expected to have him next year, I think this kind of guarantees it, or maybe guarantees it.
All right, folks. Looks like that's going to wrap it up for this week. I don't think there's anything we missed on. I'll ask Kevin at the end here if there's any recruiting that we should keep an eye on, anything out there that's recent in regards to leans or targets.
Trying to think. I mean, obviously, I think next week here on the show, we can talk a little bit about the big recruiting weekend that'll be coming up for the Notre Dame game. You kind of caught me off guard there. I've not read the list here in a couple days, so I'm not gonna name a couple of names and leave other ones off and have people be like, "Noon, what are you doing? You left off the biggest name of the weekend." But really at this point, I think everything is shaping up for a big weekend there, as Ohio State is trying to figure out what's going on with the tail end of the 2023 class.
Join our Discord. You can talk Buckeyes all the time, 24/7, 365. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, sign up right there. I get you the link. You can talk 24/7, 365. We're gaining people by the day, so more conversation of what you want it to be in college football. Kevin Noon, Big Noon Podcast, Buckeye Huddle. Tony Gerdeman, of course, on Buckeye Huddle and Buckeye Weekly. Steve Hellwagon, there he is, Bucknuts 247 Sports. Get on over there as well. Guys, we appreciate you making this happen again, and we will see you for the big Notre Dame preview next week.
Sounds good.